anything? Perfect. Yes, very good. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Erin?
Yep.
All right, we're going to go ahead at 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order and we'll take roll.
Yes. Board Member Appel?
Here.
Board Member Gary?
Here.
Board Member Levin is absent. Board Member Stapleton Gray?
Here.
And Board Member Zing.
Here. All right, we move to the next agenda item, approval of the minutes, November 20th and January 15th, 2019.
Yes, so we will need two separate motions for each of the minutes. So you had approved, the minutes had been, at the January meeting, there was an attempt to approve the November meeting minutes, but because Sarah was the only one who made the motion and there was no second, and so we need to redo those. And even if you weren't at the meeting, you can partake in the motion.
All right.
So that's a clarification.
All right, I motion that we approve November 20th, 2018 minutes.
I'll second.
So motion by Member Gary and second by Member Appel. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. I motion that we approve January 15th, 2019 minutes.
I was there, so I'll second that one.
Okay, so motion made by Member Gary and seconded by Member Stapleton Gray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go down to public comments. Any public comments at this time? You have 3 minutes? No? But thank you for coming. All right, any announcements from staff?
No announcements.
I can make an
But you
announcement
can,
just perfunctorily to introduce the new Albany Library Manager. This is Rachel Scher. She comes to us from the Open Public Library and can tell you all a little bit more about herself as part of her presentation.
I didn't put that in my presentation, but I'm happy to tell you more about myself.
Okay, nice. Any other announcements?
I had a fascinating meeting with the woman that launched the Berkeley Baby Book Project. She has about 500 recipients. They're getting books monthly. It's essentially funded by Dolly Parton's Imagination Library nonprofit. And so for a marginal cost per kid, they get books every month sent in the mail. And it's based on geography, so she gives a bunch of zip codes, started with a portion of Berkeley, now I think she's all of Berkeley, and would very much like to see it replicated, would very much like to see it, say, take off as, say, a county level thing, if First Five were interested, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll be looking into this as to whether or not we could see something like an Albany and northward sort of counterpart to it, if I get around to it, or if I can find someone else who'd be interested in doing it. But basically, it's getting the kids from age 0 up to 5, and they graduated on their birthday, a book a month. As a former school board member, it's intriguing to me because I think there's this great window where we could get into kids, and we don't. We watch them come in as TK. We do nothing on language until 7th grade, and the program has English and Spanish, bilingual, etc. So it was an interesting project. She just sort of launched it on a whim. She was driving a bus and giving out books on the bus and decided to pick this up as an affiliate. It's got affiliates all over the country, all over the world, I guess. So I can provide some more information for dissemination on that. But next steps is probably me looking to find some way to launch an expanded version of this outside of Berkeley.
Very good. Any announcements from you? No? All right. Now we'll go to presentations.
Okay. Mind if I go over here? It would be a little easier. Is there There you go. Well, again, I'm Rachel Scher. I'm the new manager. Been here a little over a month. Happy to tell you if you have any questions about my experience prior to working at Albany. I'm happy to speak on that. The screen looks very small from here, but I think I can.
It is also a touch screen if you want to just go up
Oh, really?
and use it that way.
Well, that might be, yeah. My eyesight is not good enough, I think. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on at the library and some things that we've been talking about doing at the library in the future. So how does the touch screen work? Do I just swipe right? Oh! So some quick news. Some of these are all not just for Albany. Can you all see the screen? We're going to be requiring patron pins very soon. Actually, that's next week, March 25th. It's not really going to affect library users in the library. The only thing it would affect is right now a lot of patrons place holds through the Link Plus system. If you don't know what that is, it's the interlibrary loan system. And we won't be able to do that anymore without asking for the patron's PIN. So what we've done is asked for some PIN code attachment devices to just attach to our computers at the reference desk, so that if patrons want to do a request and they want assistance at the reference desk placing a Link Plus request, we can help them without asking them for their PIN information. Also, New York Times is available now at all California libraries, I think. Yes? And we have this book match program that's been going on where you fill out a questionnaire and then people on library staff will select a selection of books just for you. That's pretty exciting. I've been talking with the Poet Laureate for Albany about revitalizing the poetry series, which sort of, I think, fell away. I'm not exactly sure. There's some history behind it, but we're talking about rebranding it so it gets some new life. I think it became a little bit insular, according to her reports. And so we want to bring new people into it and give it new life. So we've been throwing out titles. Nothing's caught on yet. So for now, we're just calling it Poetry at Albany Library. We have one event set up for April for Poetry Month. We're going to have just a reading series. But beyond that, we're trying to think outside the box a little bit and get more we're calling patrons members now, so we're trying to get more member feedback about what they'd like to see out of the poetry program. We have a lot of volunteer support at Albany. If you don't already know, we have somebody from our friends group right here. So we have a great friends group. They're very involved. They meet every third Wednesday of the month. Is that it? And we had over 75 volunteer hours logged just last month. We are trying to we had a teen advisory board that also kind of fell away, so I've been talking with the teen librarian about recruiting new students to the teen advisory board through the middle school and the high school, especially some precocious 8th graders I think would be good for it, because then next year they'll be in high school and they can be leaders on the teen advisory board. You don't have to be in high school to be on the teen advisory board. It was just thinking ahead, that would be a good grade to start with. So I met with the middle school librarian about that, and about also starting to look into how we can support the iSearch project next year. Circulation, just last month I calculated was over 4,000 items, so we're a pretty busy library. And that's just the items that are circulating. That's not counting all the online databases and resources that we have.
It's probably 10% of what we circulate in a month. So there may have just been a
Oh, really?
a carry.
Maybe
yeah.
I added something wrong or looked in the wrong stat group. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Statistics will be trained
Okay.
later.
As you can see, this is a snapshot of our calendar for next month. We've got very full calendar, stuff going on every day that we're open pretty much, except for occasional Sundays, but that's a pretty short day, so it's a little harder to do programming. And these are all just library programs. We also sometimes have non-library programs, like for instance tonight there's a non-library program using the community Edith Stone room. So we're programming for all ages. I've been talking with the staff about more intergenerational and family programming. One reason is because we've noticed that for teen programs, for instance, kids show up and they want to take part and participate, and so we don't want to, we would never make it off limits for any age group unless it was a safety issue, but maybe instead of just targeting specific age groups, we can think about more intergenerational programs. And also that includes this weekend, I think, is the weekend we're going to have tech support for seniors. We have a volunteer on Sundays, a teen volunteer who's really good with technology, and so she's offering tech support for seniors. We're going to see how that goes. Even if we, what?
I know another kid for you.
Oh yeah, that would be great because we need more than one. And if it becomes popular, maybe we'll go to the senior center or there's a senior living facility nearby and book appointments, kind of the way we do lawyers in the library here. We also had a series of Oscar movies, or not Oscar movies, but well, we have had some Oscar movies, but a series of popular movies lately, and that were not kid-friendly, and so kids were asking if we could have more movies for them, so we're going to have some Oscar films for families. We've also tried to have some fun with our display cases in front of the library, and we're trying to showcase work made by kids and adults here. So this first image is crafts from this program called Margogami. The woman who runs it, her name's Margot. And then these are Lego things made in the Lego lab. And then a few months, I'm not sure what month we booked it, but we're going to have a staff art and writing show in the display case. Oh, I don't want notifications. So here's some of the movies that we've had in our Albany Film Festival. For African American History Month, we had a series of films. A lot of them were local to the Bay Area. They had connections to the Bay Area. Some of them were Oscar nominees and other award winners. They were very popular. And so it was pretty successful. We also have Zumba. So we're trying to sort of brand everything. Move at Albany, make at Albany, just to, it's a catchy, easy way to brand our library, I guess. We're also meeting regularly, the reference staff, discussing how we can evaluate our programs other than just attendance. So attendance isn't the only measure of a successful library program. So we've been having weekly meetings, and that's a regular discussion topic. Some recent events from our Brown Bag series that were really successful. This first one I wasn't here for Bob Lewis, but it was so popular that we're bringing him back for a 5-part series in the fall. Also, we had a local author that led a really interesting discussion. Barbara Ridley, and this last one was also really popular, and we did have this month an encore presentation scheduled, but something came up for her, some personal reasons she had to cancel, but we've already rescheduled it, I think, for next month. Yeah, the brown bag discussion series is going really well. And then, of course, we have really popular children's programming. Baby Bounce has usually at least 30 babies. I go to it because I have a baby. And it's really fun, really popular. The toddler time, I don't know, that's a typo there, that A. But there are 2 toddler times now because the first one became so popular, it was getting too crowded. There's at least 50 that's just the kids showing up. So Caitlin, our children's librarian, made a second toddler time after, and we have a fair number. We'd like the numbers to even out a little more, but it's hard with nap times and kids' schedules. So there are less kids coming to the second one, but it's still a pretty big group. I actually ran the toddler time for her because she was away on vacation this week, and I used to be a children's librarian, so it was fun. The first group was really big. And we have regular sing-along events every week, and then we also have a weekly Lego lab, and this is on top of our and pause to read. Of course, you get to read to a dog. So these are all our regular events, and then we have also special events every month. And then we had some fun teen programs. Well, not all of them are fun. Test prep is not fun, but it's very popular. So we've had a bunch of test prep for the SAT, the ACT. The teen henna party was really popular, and some very cool designs. Adults, kids, teens, a lot of people are going to that teen henna party. And the improv workshops, that's an example of a program that maybe didn't get a huge turnout, but the kids really enjoyed it, and the feedback we got was that it was really valuable program. So, oh, that's the end of my slides.
Okay, well, thank you.
Any questions?
For sharing. Do you guys have any questions?
So can you put this online somewhere so we can have a copy?
Sure, I can I upload it to your...
You can send it to me, and
Okay.
I'll forward it to all of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll fix that typo.
I was just, when are the teen programs? What day of the week? Or?
The Teen Zone, I can't remember when the teen... So there are 2 programs that happen every week at the same time, the Teen Zone and the Teen Advisory Board. But the other teen programs are just, they're not regularly scheduled at a specific time.
Okay.
I can look at our April calendar, let's see. So Teen Zone happens on Mondays, and Wednesday afternoon, you see something?
That was when the improv and henna workshop.
Oh yeah,
okay.
a lot of, well, because school gets out early on Wednesdays, that's when we try to do a lot of our teen and children's programming, but it doesn't necessarily have to be on a Wednesday, it might end up being on another day. Are there other questions?
Thank you for sharing. They're good, nice programs too, so
Yeah.
make me want to come to the library more often.
Do I just pull this out or reject it?
It'll be fine, yeah.
Okay. That was not
Might be unhappy.
still there. That's strange.
Maybe she swam.
I'm pretty sure that was me.
To the city website now, right?
Yeah, after the tour.
Do you want me to put it back in there? Would that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I just copied it, maybe.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
Push it.
All right, any additional presentations? All right. Go to discussion, we just had your Albany Library report from Rachel, preview of the budget process.
Yeah, so this is just a brief introduction to the item that the board will go into in much further detail at your May meeting when the finance director for the Albany County Library will be here to present the agreement and budget for the Albany Library. And just a little bit of background to refresh your memory. The charge of the library board is to advise the city council on matters relating to the Albany branch of the Alameda County Library System, with a specific focus on the review of the annual proposed contract between the city and county for library services. And the library board's role is to provide a recommendation to council regarding the approval of the contract between the city and the Alameda County Library. So that's what you'll be doing in May, is going over the information provided and then making a recommendation to council, which then will go to council at their next meeting. And then just a little bit more background, what the contract pays for is basically 25.5 hours of extra staff, of open, that the library is open. If it wasn't for that contract, the library would be open 15 hours per week. The contract is usually around $725,000. I haven't received the draft contract yet, so we will see what this year brings. And then how the city pays for this contract is the city levies 2 special taxes that were approved by voters. One in June 1994, the voters approved the Library Services Act, which currently assesses a $69.22 per year tax on single-family residential parcels. And then in June 2006, Albany voters approved a supplemental parcel tax, which is currently established at $28.36 per single-family unit. So the total for both measures is $97.58. And then both measures contain no sunset clauses and provision for annual adjustments based on changes in the consumer price index. So you'll also receive a report from the city's finance director on the fund balance of the taxes and whether or not she is recommending that there be a different tax assessed in the next fiscal year. But I think in the most fairly recent last years, there hasn't been any increase in the tax because the revenue basically covers the expenses of the contract, and there is a healthy fund balance at this time. So as I said, this was just an overview to give you a little bit of information before the May meeting. The agenda for the May meeting will have more information, and I strongly suggest that you go over that information so that you're ready at the meeting to ask questions and are well informed as to what will be presented. Yeah.
Will we get a, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just a question that's sort of historical. So we moved here in 2001. At some point, the library expanded weekend hours, like maybe had not been doing Sundays. Was that directly related to the 06 parcel tax?
Probably.
Yeah.
I wasn't working for the county library then, but that
And-
sounds accurate.
And if the library were to some point go 7 days a week, it would likely be as a result of deciding we're going to tax ourselves more, or the city council deciding in its wisdom to do that, or I mean, if we're not increasing the parcel tax rates because we're okay with the budget, there's a question of, well, could we go to another day? So I imagine that would be an open question for certainly the council to decide on, but maybe for this board to weigh on.
Mm-hmm.
For another half day.
Well, an hour where you can show up and say, I've got books on hold. With a book bot that just sort of brings them to.
Will we get a copy of that budget prior to council review, or we won't see it until May?
Usually the contract is in the packet, I believe. Is the
I think
contract?
the top level number.
Yeah, the top, yeah, and then the memo from the finance director will be in the packet.
Okay.
You'll receive a staff report with background information and recommendations, so. Any further questions?
All right. Next on the item is the tour of the library.
I would bring your personal belongings.
Okay.
Is the door doesn't lock?
I just don't have the key. So it's a-
Oh no, this is not our.
It's the
Yeah.
ESC room. Yeah, we should have that key.
All right. Thank you, Ben, for the tour of the library. It was very informative. Thank you. And that leads us down to the library board work plan. So, have you guys had a chance to look at it? We're not going to do too much because the chair is not here, but at least want to talk about it and maybe go into a couple of topics and see where we come up from there. Is that what you're
Right,
gonna
well,
do?
the recurring items are, the advise the city council on the contract with Albany County. So I'm looking at 2017, 2019 initiatives.
Mhm.
So, I could see that roll over to the next work plan.
Mhm.
Recommend the appointment of an Albany representative to the Albany County Library Advisory Commission, so that you've done. So that would also be part of that. Review Alameda County library collection procedures and other policies or procedures as appropriate. So that's basically informational items that come to you during your meeting from the library, the presentations from the library staff. So you would continue to have that. Work with the Albany Library Manager on recommendations for the expenditure of the Young Bequest. So you'll be working on that also. Over the next year or two.
And you said there's only 30,000.
There's about $30,000 left. And this one here, support and promote the Albany Library in the community, emphasizing the library's role in promoting the city's strategic plan goals of engaging our diverse community, promoting health and wellness, creating cultural facilities and opportunities, and investigating ways to support the arts. So I think that's the one item that I think was in this plan that tried to tie into the City of Albany Council strategic plan. We're still in draft mode for the council strategic plan. I think the strategic plan is going back to council on April 1st. And if it's adopted at that time, then you can review it at the May meeting, and if you'd like to add anything more specific to that relates to the strategic plan, that could be done at the May meeting based. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes to the main goals, but there could be some changes and tweaks. As you can see, it's already starting to the actions or the strategy. So you can look at that a little closer, and then I will include it in your packet, so you can review that as part of your homework for the May meeting. And then advocate for state or national library issues as appropriate. I'm not sure, Ben, if you would you a little bit. Do you bring items?
So we have brought items in the past. Part of the challenge there is that many items that would be state or national items for for you to advocate on would really be appropriate to seek council's approval to be an advocate on that. But we've discussed in the previous state legislature, there was a proposal put forth by Assemblyperson Dodd around lowering the threshold of local ballot measures in support of library construction to the school threshold. So most items take 2/3 majority. For schools, it's 55%. And so there was some discussion on there. Ultimately, it was tabled. But should that come up again in the legislature or similar items, that would be an area where board members could potentially submit a letter of support.
I would like to just chime in on that one and mention to the others on the board that I know the American Libraries Association has a membership category for trustees and board members. And if you're interested in joining that organization, that's a good way to kind of keep track of what the national issues are. And I think the California Library Association must have something like that as well, though I'm not sure.
So what I can do for the next meeting is basically move the initiatives for 2017, 2019 into the recent initiatives and accomplishments. So update the work plan that way, and then also include the ones we just discussed, and then you can tweak and add based on the council strategic plan and anything else you'd like to see as part of your work plan. If you have any ideas right now, I'm happy to take notes and include those as part of the next draft.
So basically, the last 3 items are kind of like what we'll be working towards and accomplishing over the 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, and the contract is yearly.
Okay.
Yeah, so in May of every year.
When was the last time the board had a presentation on the county library collection development policies?
Specifically on the policies, I couldn't say, but the discussion of the collection within the last year, we had a presentation from the manager of our collection on, the process, how the library does collection management.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware that in the past few years, there was a big kind of library controversy about weeding, and I understand that the collection development procedures were updated in the wake of that, and I'm personally kind of curious about what those are now, and since that's part of our purview, I'd be interested in having a report on what those are.
Yeah, we can schedule that at a future meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move forward.
Are they available online on the library's website somewhere?
So trying to recall exactly the test, the deselection procedures were what was actually updated in 2016, 2015, 16. And those they're not on the library's website just as an informational item. You could certainly dig them up from the Board of Supervisors meeting. However, if there's interest in the board in reviewing those, I'm sure we can pull them together.
Is anyone else besides me, the librarian, interested in seeing those?
I am.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've kind of moved into future agenda items. Anything else as far as future agenda items? Or I think the big item next in May will be the review of the contract,
Right.
finishing up the work plan.
I should have asked this question when we still have the branch head, but Rachel didn't give the same kind of report that Awida had given the month or the 2 months ago, where
Mhm.
there were a lot of statistics in that. And can we get that back in the branch manager's report?
So we do a quarterly statistical
Quarterly,
report,
okay.
and so at every board meeting that comes after that, we'll provide that. So the next quarter, ending in April, the May meeting, we can
Okay.
provide that.
How can we access the last one?
How can you access the last one?
Or is that available for us
The
to?
presentation
Correct,
itself?
Right.
It was not included as part of the,
It was recorded, you can
Yeah.
listen to it,
Oh, okay.
but
But
we
as far as
didn't get it as an
materials.
agenda item, so it's not in, it wasn't in the
But it was
packet.
distributed in
But it was
person.
distributed at the meeting.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I have a copy. Oh, I see, I have a copy,
Okay, I'll
So-
grab that from you.
You got it.
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Oh, weird.
but it was distributed at the meeting
Okay,
also.
I'll look through that.
Mhm.
Anything else? Future? No?
Okay.
All right.
So the next meeting is on May 21st.
At City Hall.
Yes, it will be at
7
City Hall.
p.m.
Mhm.
And hopefully I will not be running. No.
you did great.
You did a fabulous
We
job.
wish Sarah well and get well. And until then, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.